The Cannabis Conversation. A European perspective on the emerging legal cannabis industry.
Welcome to the Cannabis Conversation with Anuj Desai, where we explore the new legal cannabis industry by speaking to the professionals that are helping to shape it. Welcome back. Hope you're all well. I'm off to Berlin next week, which I'm very excited about. I'll be moderating a great panel about the Swiss and Dutch pilot schemes at CB Club on the 28th. That includes Nikita from my sponsors Lumino, which will be exciting. Be a great chance to catch up with some of my favourite people in the space. And I also might get a chance to go clubbing. Quite desperate for a dance, so hopefully I can rope in a few of the crew. Please do join us if you're in town for the conference or the clubbing. I mentioned my new collaboration with Glow and Cancard a couple of weeks ago, and I'm very glad to get them on the show this week. Glow are crowdfunding on Cedars, and with Cancard, really want to establish community-owned cultivation business that represents patients. You can get involved too. I post links on the Cannabis Conversation LinkedIn page on the 6th of June. So please do check them out. I'll repost when I post this show. Usual caveats about investing at your own risk, but there's plenty of info on the Cedars page to help you out. And on to some other great people in this space, my lovely sponsors from Lumino. We are talking about patient-centered cannabis today, and Lumino have always had patients at the heart of what they do. They all got into the industry motivated to help patients and have helped many to find roles in this sector. They've also recruited for many cultivators across Europe and the rest of the world, so really understand these types of businesses too. So as always, if you do need help with HR or recruitment, please do get in touch with them at luminorecruit.com. And obviously, please do mention my name when you do. Now, on with the show. Enjoy. On today's show, I have Alex Fray, Charlie Price, and Carly Barton. Alex and Charlie are from Grow Lab Organics, known as Glow. They are a medical cannabis company based in the Isle of Man. And Carly is a leading patient advocate and founder of Cancard, which we'll find out more about in a minute. Guys, welcome. How are you all?
Hi, Anuj.
Good. Thanks, Anuj. Nice to be on the show.
We're good. It's early, Anuj. You've got us up early.
It is early. But it's good. The sun is shining. We're all happy. That's good.
Yeah.
So, guys, look, I've known you guys for ages, and I'm really pleased to be working with you on your project, which we'll find out about more in a sec. But, why don't we find out a little bit more about you guys on a personal level, your backstories, what you were doing before and why you got involved in cannabis. Carly, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I'm Carly. I'm first and foremost a patient. I got into this space in a really weird way. I was a lecturer in fine art in Brighton University. When I was 24, I suffered a stroke, which left me with quite horrific neuropathic pain that meant I was on opiates for 6 years. So I was taking morphine and fentanyl daily to manage the pain. And it wasn't until I found cannabis that my life completely changed. And I was able to get out of that daft mobility scooter and on my feet. And I've pretty much gone from being, I'd say, sort of bedbound, definitely housebound, to training for a triathlon because of cannabis. And that discovery really shifted things for me. And I went on to advocate for medicinal cannabis. I was the first patient in the UK to get a prescription for herbal cannabis when the law changed in 2018. And I have also set up an organisation called Cancard. And Cancard is a medical ID card that we worked on with police. And it serves patients who either have a prescription or don't, but the majority of our members don't have a prescription. And the idea of it is that whether you have your prescription or not, you can demonstrate to a police officer that you are using cannabis medicinally. We have a support line in which the police officer can get more information about whether that patient is prescribed or what their situation is. And it is really about them using their discretion, mainly in cases where patients don't have a prescription. We've just gone over 80,000 members really recently. And we support patients in all aspects of their life, not just with the law. So we do social housing, we look at family court issues, we look at work issues. So we are generally advocating for patients and deal with any issues that come up around their medicinal use.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Carly. And everyone in the UK industry knows you, and it's a fantastic project that you set up. Do you find, we're going to talk about lots of stuff today, but do you find that certain police forces have been more amenable than others?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think we're in a better shape now, but initially, I think some of them were more resistant than others. I think we have, for example, Merseyside, who do not usually accept operational guidance. They very much deal with their operational stuff themselves. So it's taken us a long time to get in there and be able to do training and offer that same support. However, what we find, even if the sort of chiefs are resistant, the actual officers on the street who are dealing with patients usually, once they've spoken to us on the phone, they've seen the card, discretion is usually the immediate response. So I think we're seeing things shifting, we're seeing things changing, we're seeing better response, and we're also seeing a great deal of awareness because we've had that time to get in and get the training in. So yeah, I think things are much more equal.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I can imagine as well. Like it's a real waste of resources, isn't it? To there's the bigger picture that we're always talking about. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Carly. Alex, do you want to go next?
Thanks, Anuj. Yeah, my name is Alex Fray. I'm the Chief Executive of Grow Lab Organics, a licensed cannabis company in the Isle of Man. And my background, I was in financial services, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I was preparing the company that I was running, international financial services company in the Isle of Man that I was running for sale, and considering what I wanted to do next. And I could see the regulatory reform wave sweeping around the world with cannabis, and the therapeutic value of cannabis is something that I understand very well, and it was something that I felt really drawn to. And so I started talking to the government on the Isle of Man back in 2018 about this, and they were very open-minded to it because the Isle of Man is a crown dependency, which means it is part of the British Isles, but it's not part of the UK. And it has its own government, which can set its own laws. And in practice, what that means is, from a legal perspective, it's very, very closely aligned to the UK. However, they can implement slightly more pragmatic regulatory frameworks or business-friendly regulatory frameworks to create niche sectors on the island. And they've done it many times before with different industries, such as shipping, aviation, gaming, and now they've done it with cannabis. So when I had the sort of enthusiasm from the government, I found 2 extremely talented co-founders, one of whom's on the call today, and we set up a company, and that was really how it all started.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alex. We'll find out a bit more about the Isle of Man in a minute. Charlie, do you want to round it out for us?
Hi, so yeah, I'm Charlie Price, the Chief Scientific Officer for Grow Lab Organics. My background's a little bit different. I started off in academia, did my bachelor's, master's, and about 6 years PhD research in Southeast Asia and Africa, working on integrated farming systems. And then I guess became a little bit disillusioned with academia in my 30s, felt it was a little bit cyclical and wasn't pushing the boundaries in the way that it could, and ended up setting up 2 different commercial entities, one a social enterprise, doing something called aquaponics, so looking at recreating natural ecosystems in areas where they otherwise wouldn't exist, using fish as the driver for hydroponic growth and plants as a filter for fish, but also involving all sorts of really integrated, clever technologies like renewable energy and insect farming and basically closing the loop on farming systems. At the same time, I had a renewable energy company that imported big bits of equipment from Germany mainly, and for a decade became involved both in energy systems and also in farming, and how the two were kind of inextricably linked, if you like. And then as Alex alluded to, early, just turned 40, we bought a farm down in Sussex and were really thinking what next, and had been working and travelling and alongside cannabis for a couple of decades, had a deep love of the plant and had learned a lot, I guess, around the mistakes that commercial agriculture has made, how things can be done differently. And it was at that stage that the opportunity came to set up Grow Lab and to rethink, I guess, how we can take this plant forward to play into its sort of all the advantages of whole plant medicine, to not, I guess, make the same mistakes as many have done and try and strip it down into individual compounds, but instead to kind of embrace the complexity and play our part in pushing it forward, really. So it's super exciting to join you today.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. And maybe let's just talk about, what you guys are doing at the moment. So your collaboration, we're all very excited about. You've got a fundraise on Cedars, which is a crowdfunding platform. Alex, do you want to sort of talk about how you're collaborating with Carly and Cancard?
Sure. So we're a licensed cannabis company. We've been approved by the Isle of Man government for cultivation, processing, manufacturing finished products, import, export, and R&D. So pretty much the full shooting match of things that we need to do, testing as well, of course. And we've also been approved for the trading of pharmaceutical products under a WDA broker license as well. And when we were considering our strategy sort of going forward and networking with people in the industry, we met Carly, and very respectful of what Cancard have done, the objectives, how it's helped people tangibly, thousands of people. And we felt like if we could find a way to partner with Cancard, it would be really, really powerful and to be a positive force for change. So we wanted to do that, and perhaps I can pass over to Carly as to some of the feedback she was getting from her members about what was important to them, which helped us make this decision to do a community element to our next raise.
Yeah, for sure. So I think from where I was at that time when I met the Glow founders, I suppose I'd set up Cancard with like the best of intentions. It was only just supposed to just be something temporary to help people, and then I'd sort of this situation had carried on to the point where Cancard needed to exist for longer than I, kind of wanted it to in a way, and still does, which is a weird position to be in. But I think that I'd kind of accidentally created a really valuable thing, and coming to my door were all of the sort of licensed producers, maybe not all, caveat that with most. Most of the licensed producers in the market came to me to try and work with us because if you think about the size of our membership, it far exceeds anything has been done before in the UK, and far exceeds any kind of patient advocacy groups for medicinal cannabis in Europe. So we accidentally became the biggest patient group in Europe, and obviously the producers wanted to advertise to those people, or wanted to to make deals, I would say. So I was offered a considerable amount of money over a very short period of time, and all of which I turned down. I could actually be on a beach quite happy now with my retirement fund, just to point that out. But yeah, I'm not. That's not why we did this. So I was kind of a bit eye rolly when and Charlie Lyon says I could feel how much of a wall you had in front of you when we first met, because I was just at the back end of those kind of meetings. But something really shifted when I met Charlie and Alex, and I could see that these were humans with values, and that was a bit different. So I did have to actually take that wall down and actually sit with them and figure out how we could maybe do something. And I think, when we poll Cancard members quite regularly, and that's so helpful, and they're always very enthusiastic to tell us what they want and what they care about. And I'm really grateful for that, because I think that's great. And, polling said that I think it was like almost 90% of people have felt unsafe accessing on the illicit market. And that is really, really crap. But the other thing that they voted in favour of was 91%, which I think was the most we've ever had anybody agree in the community on what they want. Because if you think about it, it's such a broad range of people from all different places. This plant doesn't discriminate. So it goes, a lot of people use it from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different situations. So they tend not to agree, and that's okay. But by far the biggest thing that they all agreed on was they wanted to see a community grow. And it seemed like a complete pipe dream to be able to do anything close to that until I met the team at Glow. And not only did they come armed with hearts and talent and vision, and they'd already succeeded in getting those licenses, which is so impressive and brilliant, but they were also surprisingly open to the idea of doing this with the community and allowing them to buy in, allowing them to have ownership over something that has been, at the moment, I would say the vibe from the community is disempowerment around the sort of way that they have been treated within the legal market. And I wanted to do something about that and offer them something and offer them in, because at the moment they feel excluded. That's the general vibe. And the team at Glow also wanted to do that. And so a really beautiful partnership has come out of this. And, we've become a force that I hope will make some change. I've been saying, we haven't got to the point where you can grow your own yet, but now, thanks to this and thanks to the work that the whole team has done, the whole Cancard team, the whole Glow team, we can now offer the opportunity for patients to own their grow.
It's fantastic. I remember talking to you at the time, and you'd had a lot of those meetings, but then also talking to the Glow guys, and I was really, really happy about this marriage, all good people getting together, doing something good. So I'm really, really pleased for you all. So do you want to just give a quick pitch on what you're doing in terms of the fundraise as well?
Yeah, so it's really quite simple, Anuj. We've elected to enable the community to buy in a really simple way through an FCA regulated broker called Seeders.com, which is like a crowdfunding platform. So it offers all of the sort of regulatory air cover for individual investors to come in. They come in via the Seeders nominee, which gives them a secondary market, so it provides liquidity for that investment as well. And those shares can be bought and sold in trading windows as we go through the journey of this company. And then alongside that, of course, there are some investors that are looking to invest a larger amount of money, and they are tending to come directly to me, and we're having those conversations offline.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. And let's maybe just talk about the main topic now, which is patient-centered medical cannabis. And before we kind of get into some of the things that you're going to be doing, maybe let's talk about what's wrong with the current system to begin with. Carly, maybe you're best placed to do that.
Sure. I think it's safe to say that things have improved insofar as the legal access. So when I got my prescription, it was incredibly expensive. It was £1,500 for what is essentially an ounce, which, for anybody who is listening who isn't au fait with English prices, I would say you're going to pay $160 to a friendly florist if, for an ounce, or $210 if you want something really special. But, that's the difference in price that existed in the market. The pricing has got better. There's people like Drug Science, Project T21, who, we are going to join as well, are doing things in a fairer way. But I think when we polled Cancard members, the most recent poll, we came out with, there were three sort of areas of improvement that needs to be made. So when we asked, why aren't you, if you've had a prescription and you no longer have one, or you don't have one at all, why is that? And there were three reasons that they gave. The first one was price. I still think that people aren't getting the best priced products. The second one is quality. And I think that has been a massive issue for patients. As we've seen, the numbers of private prescription that have ever been are kind of 80,000-ish. And we're working on a repeat prescription of about 10 to 15,000 at the moment. Now, if you think about that, quite a significant drop off. So why are people returning to the illicit market? And the quality is a massive one. But I also think those two, price and quality, go hand in hand. What we're talking about is a sort of tragic combination of poor quality for a price which is not fair. And the third objective was a variation of the sentence. And you can imagine that there was some swearing in this box because it was a free box, but it was a variation of, they don't represent me. Now you can imagine that, Big Pharma got a few F-bombs in that box. And so, there's a feeling of disempowerment, of disconnect, of, this is, if you think about the way that people find cannabis, right? So if you think about what I'm talking about is people's relationship with cannabis. So if you think about, they are unwell people. They've often used this as a last resort medicine. They've been through the ringer. They've been to see every doctor. They've tried every pill. They end up, just like me, very, very, very typical story. They end up with cannabis. And, oh, hang on a minute, this works, right? Not only does this work, I'm now in a tricky situation because this is illegal. I'm having to keep my eye on my shoulder all the time. When I see an officer in the street, you get that, ooh, twitch. And that's a very difficult position for people to be in. And it creates a sense of disempowerment, of distrust, but also of a very strong connection to this plant. And so when you then align that with this situation, and people are then saying, yeah, you can have this legally, what we're going to do is we're going to charge you more and we're going to reduce the quality of your medicine. That comes across as something which, it just doesn't sit right. It doesn't make any sense. I always say, if an alien landed and we had to explain to the alien, I think there has been a UFO sighting last night, actually, by the way, in Vegas, just just for your information. But if an alien landed, we had to explain what we're doing with this plant. It just wouldn't make any sense. And so those 3 points, price, quality, which I think go hand in hand, and the third one, they don't represent me, are massive issues within the patient community. And those 3 things are the 3 things that as Glow, we started off building out how can we address those. And so we want to make craft quality cannabis, the quality at a fair price. We want those 2 things bolted together tightly. And we are going to offer benefits to people who want to get involved and want to become shareholders via Cedars. They can do that on cedars.com/grow-organics. And we're going to offer benefits that will reduce their costs further. And the third one, they don't represent me. Well, this is Glow is your company. You can own a piece of it. We're going to have a platform where patients and shareholders can come and have their say and vote on things and vote on what cultivars they'd like to see, what packaging they'd like to see, what charities they want us to support, everything. We really want them to feel like part of this, let's do this together kind of thing. This is all of our company.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I was just going to say it's worth jumping in to sort of say practically how we kind of want to address these challenges. There's the price, there's the choice. And I guess in terms of choice, we, as Carly's alluded to, we firmly believe that everyone's different. Everyone's preferences, everyone's reasons for approaching cannabis are different. And the cannabis plant in itself is hugely diverse. And we know very different strains have very different effects on different people for different reasons. So having that choice available is key. But how to do that practically involves us sort of dividing down our cultivation, if you like, into small batches, so that rather than having huge greenhouses of a single plant that gives one crop, that gives the ability to drive down price because it's then a commodity, we're able to sort of modularize our cultivation to allow us to have specific climates tailored for specific cultivars grown in batches that can be super responsive to demand and to changes in preference. So I guess that's how we're tackling the choice bit. Then when it comes to price, we're tackling and have looked at that in a very similar way to the legacy market, where in order to get an affordable price to the consumer, we felt we need to vertically integrate. So we need to be able to control our cultivation, to control the processing, and all the way down to putting our products in the hands of those patients. And if we're able to take that whole supply chain and subsidize some parts of it to make up for others, we felt we're then able to put cannabis in the hands of people at a comparable, if not cheaper price than is available in the legacy market. And I guess, so there's the sort of choice in the price, it's the sort of benefit of the economy from scale. But we, as Carly's alluded to, we really believe in the ability or the right for people to grow this plant. And we leaned into the fact that you can't, unfortunately, and you can sit on the fence and be super sort of critical about the laws, and as we are very often, or you can kind of embrace them and actually move in to sort of get to know the regulator and the regulations. And what we've really tried to do in the Isle of Man is to create not just a business proposition, but as we said, a sort of a shared grow that we've taken on all of the huge barriers to entry, the costs, the legislative requirements, having pharmaceutical compliance, having the right team to make it happen, and have kind of removed those barriers to entry to a point where now we are saying to the everyday cannabis community, people that love this plant and have used it for however long, that they can now get involved for as little as £100 and benefit from that kind of that umbrella that we've tried to create for the community to truly make this a kind of a shared grow where people have a voice in what we do going forward. So I thought, it's just important to sort of try and give real world context. Everyone says it should be cheaper, and we know it should be, but how do we do that? I think it's important.
Yeah, that's a really valuable ad. Thank you. And, it's a very clear problem solution approach to your strategy, which makes sense. And sadly, I've seen many companies not have that at the kind of foundation of what they're doing. And it's brilliant that you talk about, price and quality are the thing that you talk about. And it makes sense that if you're having to pay more for something that's inferior. However, Carly, you alluded earlier to this. There are problems with the illicit system because it's illegal, and that is a combination of fear and feeling unsafe and all of these sort of things. So how does that kind of play in? Obviously you've got a big community and a lot of them are sourcing it that way. What's the general vibe on that? Because you said obviously a lot of people feel unsafe about how they source their medicine effectively.
Yeah. So I'd say I think there's two sort of camps. There are people who are quite happy with their supplier, and there are people who unfortunately are in a situation where they are unable to discern what it is that they're getting. They're often not able to source consistent supply, and that's really important, particularly for those with neuro conditions, because if you find a cultivar or a profile that works for you and you then switch, it can just set you back and it can cause problems. For people who have epilepsy, that can be even more problematic. So there is a massive issue there. And I think in terms of suppliers, there's also two camps. I think that there is a lot of people in the space who are providing and growing, who are also doing harm in our communities, who are part of criminal organizations, who are taking advantage of people, who are doing so with the worst of intentions possible. But then on the other hand, you have these golden shiny people in the industry who I would consider the real specialists in this country, who are growing and providing medicine for patients and doing their very best. And a lot of those specialists are doing so under fear of criminalisation, when if you pick them up and you dropped them in Canada, they would be on huge salaries because there is nothing that they don't know about this plant. So I think, there's two sort of opposing forces in here when we talk about the patient experience and when we talk about those people who are supporting that patient experience. So you can understand that those people who are accessing via some dodgy geezer on a moped who's also shifting heroin or coke or whatever, you can understand why they are feeling like this really is not okay for me accessing my medicine. But you can also understand why patients who have got a really amazing supplier are reluctant to move from that supplier, and also are kind of protective of that supplier because that supplier's really helped them with their arthritis or their MS, And I think it's important to embrace this. It's important to embrace that this is the situation. This is what we've got on the ground. This is what we've got. So I think what we can work towards is, providing brilliant, beautiful medicine to those people who really need it. And in that process, removing some of the income and the income stream generated from the people who are dealing this medicine and who are causing harm in our communities. And on the other side of things, look after those patients who are used to crack quality cannabis, and also by harnessing the talent and the skills from those people who are our best growers, our best extractors, our best of the best in this space. And taking them away from doing this in a criminal way. They deserve, they've worked, for some of these people for 30 years have been researchers. They are plant specialists. They are incredible at what they do. They deserve to be able to put food on their family's table legally, just like you would in any other specialism. So, we understand what's going on out there because we are also out there, because our community is out there telling us this is what's happening. And so it's about embracing that and really using it, getting in and cleaning it up and giving people opportunities to be able to move on with their lives, giving them great medicine and giving people great opportunities to be able to come and work with us.
Fantastic. So just Kai, just back to put to you, and Charlie, maybe you can pipe in as well. I mean, look, one of the key bits as we kind of come towards the end of this is community. We've talked about it a number of times, and I read a report, I think it might have been a Deloitte or one of those big consulting firms, about the future of healthcare is going to be community. And it makes sense, right? The health system is kind of underfunded and is creaking. Doctors don't get enough time with patients, etc. How important do you think that aspect's going to be in terms of, people helping each other, people supporting each other? And you're already seeing it in what you're doing, but, this is a kind of an extension, the project that you're doing now.
I think cannabis is like a really interesting space to watch that happening. And, a lot of our patients have really reached the end of their tether. And their relationship with cannabis is very different to their relationship with other medicine, because you can see it, you can smell it, you can grow it, you can understand it, you can read about it. It's a tactile thing. It's very different, that relationship with cannabis, than it is with a drug that, in a sort of patriarchal system of, healthcare. Somebody comes in, tells you to take this, you don't know, it's called something funny, you can't spell it. It comes with an absolutely gigantic list of things that it might do to you while you're sleeping, so you have to sleep with one eye open. It's like, the difference in, this, a plant that you can physically, is a living thing, and this sort of like dead tablet, that you don't really understand the mechanism of what it's doing in your body. The relationship there is completely different. And so, what we're seeing is people sort of moving towards this and kind of dropping, I suppose, in a lot of respects, kind of dropping their trust in the systems which provide us with other medicines. Not that all medicines are bad, as a caveat. And so what we're seeing in a very sort of micro way is people coming together with nature, and that being the answer for these people. And because of the way that the legal system and the law works and has fallen in terms of the timing of it, we're seeing that happen alongside the illegality makes this a powerful thing to watch, because they're doing that outside of, a lot of the time, outside of medical supervision. So we're kind of watching this thing take off outside of the system. And we have been doing, and that's what we've seen worldwide, right? And so it's a really interesting space to watch. Like, what else are we going to see come out of that sort of need to step away from a system which is, inherently in trouble? It's in trouble, and it's not working, and we can't shift it quick enough for it to be able to work. So that some of that system is collapsing. And in the meantime, there's this thing over here that's happening with nature that you're watching, and you're watching people get better, and you're watching people connect with themselves like they've not done for years, and you're watching people walk out of wheelchairs. And that sits outside of the system. So it's a really interesting space to watch that happen when we're with cannabis. I imagine that is going to be even bigger when when the likes of, psychedelics gain a bit more momentum in the space, and we start to see that also sort of go against our sort of more traditional modern way of looking at medicine. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, CP.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, I think it's a really, really, really exciting time for two reasons. I think that the medical community, that there's been a pause of that's happened in this sort of area of 50, 60 years of prohibition. And I think along in that time, there was a huge focus on the current pharmaceutical paradigm, sort of isolating molecules, looking at cause effect, looking at clinical trials, and with that comes all of the side effects that you mentioned, Carly, related to medicine, and this mistrust sometimes, and the focus very often on side effects rather than on what its intentional kind of purpose. And I think cannabis represents because of this void, it represents a massive opportunity for the medical community to find out new things that we all know that have been so far sort of uncategorized from the sort of scientific medical community. And I think that comes along with the complexity of plant-based medicine. But I think everyone is waking up to the fact that complexity exists, and it's something that we need to understand rather than sort of shy away from. And the way our understanding about the gut microbiome, about fungi, mushrooms, about psychedelics, and it's all very timely for cannabis to sort of come out of this period of prohibition, for us to come together as a community with the medical community and scientists and researchers to document what we all know happens when we take cannabis. And we have a range of effects that are pronounced and hugely beneficial for different people. But at the moment, accessing cannabis, I often say, is a little bit like going into a bar with an empty pint glass and having no real control whether that bar person puts a pint of vodka in there or a pint of shandy, and your range of effects are as different as if they did that, but there isn't the traceability, the understanding of strength and different kind of chemical effects, and we need that. And the only way that we're going to get that with a complex plant is by us all coming together and sharing our knowledge in a very open, transparent way. I think that's the big challenge. It's yes, we want to commercialize it for the greater good, and we want to take it forward, but we've got to share knowledge a little bit better, because only then will we have the evidence to give people a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's huge amounts there, and I was going to end it on that. And there's obviously a wide spectrum in the medical and the science community, but they tend to be a bit more conservative, I think. And you've got some sort of really forward-thinking doctors like Leon Barron, who's also working with you. He's doing fantastic work, and we obviously need more doctors. And what they always ask for is more evidence. And so, obviously, you guys are just in the early stage at the moment of building. But what's your view on research and engaging more doctors, as you kind of grow and evolve?
The first challenge there is giving the medical community and the scientific community data. And to do that, we've sort of gone right back to the beginning. I think about 3.5, 4 years ago, we developed something called the Glow Chain. And the idea was to create a human connection between our consumer and our growers, and to be able to relay how that plant was grown, what's in it, and to the end consumer, and to do so digitally, because we couldn't do so in a human connection because of the regulatory nature. So what the Glow Chain does is it will essentially give a QR code on the product that allows the consumer to look at what's in it, the certificate of analysis, the chemical composition, but also who grew it, how it was grown, and potentially even a time lapse of it being grown, that batch. Now, that's nice and good and creates that connection. But what it most crucially does is it creates a really data-rich cannabis product. So we know every drop of water, every amount of watts and nutrients that went into it. But when we can provide it to the patient, we're then able to start looking at being able to record specifically how that batch and that particular plant made that person feel, if they're able to record how it made them feel. And so I think the first challenge to your question is creating cannabis with a little bit more information surrounding it, so that we can use it as a tool to look at cause and effect, and then create user-friendly mechanisms where people can, as part of their everyday life, try and record the kind of the effect that it has on their intended symptoms or conditions. So yeah, I think for us to truly, as an industry, give the medical community the confidence, we've got to be sort of working harder at creating more information around the product. And then we stand a really good chance at looking at strain-specific efficacy for certain conditions. And I think if we work together transparently, and most importantly, we don't look at data as a commodity, we cannot be trying to harvest people's personal information from this process. What we can do is allow people to own their own data, and through things like the Glow Chain, we seek permission to access it rather than the other way around. So I think we've got to look at that data very sensitively for the greater good of the plant rather than a commercial asset. And I think it's complex, but we definitely can do it. And I think there's a lot of thinking gone into this approach. Not for commercial gain, but for the gain of the plant and its associated effects.
Absolutely. Carly, do you want to finish this stuff with your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think Charlie hit all of the points there. I think it's really about moving this forward. But I think, as always, as in my role, I want to bring as many of those patients who have felt disempowered along with us for the ride. And I want them to feel like not only do they own this and they are part of this, but they are really able to utilize some of the difficult things that happen to them and the difficult part of their lives. I want them to feel like they can really do something with that will essentially transform things for the lives of generations to come. Like, this is a really significant thing, like to be able to use what's happening to you to then forward the potential for help and support for your kids, for your grandkids, for your great grandkids, rabbit sitters, nieces, daughter. I don't know, like that's the impact of this could be huge. And I think for me, in my situation as somebody who's, gone through a significant amount of health challenges, I've always tried my best to not fall into that disempowerment too much and to really utilize what's going on and use it then to push things forward for others. And I see Glow as being a really important vehicle to enable people to do that in an empowered way.
Fantastic. Great way to end this. And thank you. Obviously, wholly supportive of what you're doing. So I will be posting relevant links when we put the show out. And yeah, best of luck with it all, guys.
Thanks so much, Anuj.
Thanks, Anuj.
Thanks for joining me. Cheers. Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. It will help me spread the good word on how this amazing industry is developing. I'm a commercial lawyer and I work with a number of cannabis businesses in the UK. If you need help with commercial contracts, data protection, employment, corporate, or other business legal needs, please do get in touch with me via LinkedIn or at anuj@canvas.global.